Workers have been demanding to be paid their salaries in United States dollars, citing that the local currency of the Zim dollar, which is currently being used to pay them, has lost most of its value. On the other hand, we've heard the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions accusing companies of selling their goods and services at prices and tariffs denominated against the US dollar, either using the parallel market or the official exchange rate. This afternoon, we are blessed to have Dr. Israel Murefu, President of the Employers Confederation of Zimbabwe, who will be unpacking the complexities around the issue of salary payments, on whether employers are capable to pay their salaries in US dollar as alluded to by the employees. Welcome, Dr. Murefu.
Thank you, Alois. I think generally we have got two types of employers in terms of revenue generation. We have those employers or businesses that are predominantly exporting, and those generate foreign currency in the form of US dollars. And then we have domestic companies who trade in the local environment or in the local economy. The majority of trades in the local economy are in Zimbabwe dollars, whereas there are some trades in US dollars. Those trades are not as high or as significant as the trades in Zimbabwean dollars. And therefore, it is up to each employer, depending on their capacity to pay in US dollars, to say what proportion of salary do they want to pay in US dollars if they have got the US dollars. But those that are in the export market, I think have got capacity to pay in US dollars. So I think it should be up to the employer to decide which currency they could use to pay salaries, depending on which currency they are generating as they trade.
Now, recently we had the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions alleging that there's been a deadlock at the tripartite negotiation forum, where a platform which brings together government, business and labor to deliberate on issues of such key national interest. Do you confirm that indeed there's been a deadlock over the payment of salaries in US dollar?
I'm not aware that there is a deadlock, but I'm aware that there is a difference of opinion in terms of what each social partner prefers. The trade unions prefer that everyone be paid in US dollars, whereas employers would prefer that it be left to the employer or the business to decide the currency in which they want to pay, as long as they are paying. For example, if it is in the same industry, if you have a minimum wage that has been set, whether in US dollars or in local currency, as long as you are paying the equivalent, I don't think that there is anything wrong. And also, when you look at what is happening with the Zimbabwean dollar, we have noticed that it is beginning to strengthen, it is beginning to stabilize as you compare it with the United States dollar. So I think employers cannot be forced to pay just in one currency. If, for example, if you do not have the US dollars, there is no way in which you can go to any market to say, I want to buy US dollars for purposes of paying a local obligation or a local salary, because there is no market for those US dollars. You can only go to the auction if you want to pay a foreign obligation. And therefore, I think it should not be compulsory that employers pay in US dollars.
Okay, now, I understand that the COVID-19 lockdown restrictions which had been implemented by government in the past few months to ease the spread of the pandemic are beginning to be relaxed, and most companies have been allowed to reopen again. How would you describe this post-COVID-19 lockdown era for companies in terms of performance and business generation?
I think initially the lockdowns were very stringent and the operating hours were limited, and also businesses that could operate were also limited. But with the gradual relaxations, We welcome those relaxations because they augur well for business. For example, the flexibility in operating hours, I think, has come in handy for particularly those in the manufacturing sector, because they need, for example, time to prepare their machines for operations, and they also need time to close those machines. And if you have got restricted working hours, it interferes with your working arrangements or your operations. So the relaxations, we think, come in handy, and they are, in a way, assisting companies and businesses to recover from the negative effects of COVID-19. So we welcome the relaxations, and we expect more relaxations, but without compromising the health and safety measures and protocols that have been put in place to ensure that the public and the customers and the citizenry in general is safe.
Now, still on this issue of COVID-19, we had our Minister of Finance, Professor Mtuli unveiling a stimulus package with the intention to assist companies to ease off from these pressures of the lockdowns and so on. How has it been in terms of accessibility by your members? Has this fund been accessible?
I think it was a good idea to come up with a stimulus package, and I think as business or as employers, we actually advocated for such a package through the TNF forum, and when government agreed to that package, we were quite happy. But now when it comes to the operationalization or the accessing of the package, that's where we have seen a bit of a problem. When you talk to the membership, our members, you appear not to get anyone who says that they have accessed the package. So it becomes a bit difficult now to know what is exactly happening. And also, when banks lend to companies, it is a confidential issue. They don't go out and say we have lent to so and so under these conditions or under the stimulus package. So if there was a way of getting the statistics, maybe through the central bank or through the Bankers Association or through some other industry bodies, it would assist so that we know who has been assisted, who has not. And I think it becomes easier for us to then say, look, what should be done to assist those that have not yet benefited? Because obviously the resources are limited. But we also understand that the package is not all in the form of cash. Part of that package is coming in the form of guarantees. But we don't know whether the liquidity to then provide banks with resources to lend is available. And I think that's where probably the problem is. We need liquidity in the market so that businesses are able to borrow. And also, it looks like those businesses that are in a greater need to benefit are the ones that may not be able to qualify because banks have got very stringent lending conditions.
Okay. Now, just turning a bit to the issue of the foreign exchange market, which has been very topical of late in recent years in our country. We saw the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe recently incepting the RBZ foreign exchange auction system. How has this been with your membership? Have they been deriving any benefit from this?
I would like to say yes. Members have been deriving benefit, particularly those that are in priority number 1. They have been able to access the foreign currency, but it's not every one of our members who, or every company that has been able to access those funds. There are some companies that are disqualified for technical reasons, and there are some that may not be in the first priority. So some of those companies have not been able to get the foreign currency or have not been able to get as much as they would need for purposes of settling their foreign obligations or importing what they want in terms of materials that they require for their businesses. So, but in terms of stabilizing the Zimbabwean dollar, it looks like we are making progress, and the Zimbabwean dollar has been gaining against the US dollar, although in very small margins. We think that if that trend can be sustained, then I think it augurs well for the Zim dollar. However, we think that the solution to a stable currency is managing money supply, as well as ensuring that there is adequate supply of foreign currency, because as long as there is more demand for foreign currency than there is supply, it is very difficult to stabilize the Zimbabwean dollar. So we hope that the authorities will ensure that we have a steady supply of US dollars and that demand that is available can be met. And I think that way the Zimbabwean dollar can become stable.
Now, there are some businesses, I understand this could also be some of your members, who are still in the habit of pegging their prices at premiums which are much higher than the foreign exchange auction rate. What would you say about such practices?
I think pricing should be left to the business. To say that you should peg your price to the US dollar equivalent, I think is tantamount to a price control. I think the forces of supply and demand and market forces should determine the price. If you are overcharging and there are others that are charging an economic and also a fair price, it means you lose business. To insist that everyone must charge at the using the auction rate as the standard, I think is not fair, because there are some people that are not even accessing that foreign currency. Like I said, for technical reasons they are disqualified, or because they are not in the top priority, they are not able to access the foreign currency that they want. So these people may be accessing their foreign currency from other sources. I'm not sure whether it would be the parallel market or the black market, but if they are accessing their currency from other sources, it will be very difficult for them to peg their prices using the US dollar auction price as the standard or as the benchmark. So I think pricing must be left to the business and must also be left to market forces. Controlling prices by, say, insisting on a standard, I think is not the best way to deal with prices.
Now, I understand that is the Employers Confederation of Zimbabwe currently going through a congress. Would you mind sharing with our viewers what is transpiring there? What is the theme of this year's congress?
It is about repositioning business in the new normal. In fact, the new normal is now the normal. So what we are looking at is leadership within this prevailing environment where I think businesses have been affected by COVID-19. The mode of operating has also been affected by COVID-19, where you have now people working from home or people working from remote sites. How do you lead a business? How do you lead an organization through such during such times? And this is one of the issues that we are tackling. We have invited some experts from both within Zimbabwe and outside Zimbabwe, even as far as Europe, the Americas, and Asia, to share with us their experiences of working in a COVID-19 affected environment. And we think that our members will benefit from some of those experiences and also sharpen their leadership capabilities locally in terms of adapting to the changes that we have seen in our environment.
So Zimbabwe has moved a few steps up on the ease of doing business index by the World Bank. Do you see that as companies locally? Did you see these reforms benefiting you as employers?
These reforms have been welcome, but I think what is affecting us negatively is the issue of policy inconsistency. Whilst we may have made some improvements in terms of the ease of doing business, policy inconsistencies tend to affect us. And you know that investors, whether local or international investors, they want a consistency. They want certainty in terms of planning. They want to be able to budget. They want to be able to come up with plans based on prevailing policies and the economic environment. But if policies keep on changing, it becomes very difficult for them to predict or to plan, and therefore that could affect a foreign investment negatively. Even local investors are also guided by the existing policies. So I think if we can have policy consistency coupled by the ease of doing business initiatives that we are putting in place, then I think we would improve our operating environment and be able to attract investors into the economy.
So would you mind just sharing with our viewers one of these key policies which you talk about, which have been very inconsistent in our setup?
I think we have quite a number of policy changes that have been made by government. For example, we were on foreign currency, operating in foreign currency, and suddenly we had changes. A statutory instrument says the exchange rate is 1-to-1 on the conversion day, and thereafter we now say the exchange rate is 1 to 2.5, and thereafter we allow market forces, and at some point we kind of control the exchange rate, and then we let the exchange rate free. We then say we are back to foreign currency. I think that is just a typical example of these inconsistencies, because businesses had argued that it was premature to introduce the local currency, and they would have preferred an environment where we would continue on a multi-currency regime until the fundamentals that would support the stability of the Zimbabwean dollar were in place. And so those are some of the things that we are looking at when we say there are policy inconsistencies.
Okay, so as business going forward, there are a lot of targets that have been set. About creation of a $23 billion economy by 2023. The future is brighter, according to these policies which are being implemented. Do you see light at the end of the day, as is being predicted by government?
I think if we work together collectively, all the social partners, government working with business, working with the trade unions, and agreeing on some of these policy fundamentals, some of the strategic policies that we need in the economy, I think it's possible to achieve some of those targets. I think where sometimes we miss the boat is where sometimes the authorities just act on their own without consulting the social partners or businesses that are going to be affected by their policies. And so if there's discordance, if there's no common vision, then it's very difficult to then meet those targets. But if we have a shared vision, shared values, and we consult each other in terms of policies that we want to put in place that benefit everyone, I think it should be possible to achieve those targets.
Well, as we round off, just one more question or remark which we'd like to give to our viewers, Zimbabwean workers out there, businesses out there. What will be your last word to our viewers?
I must say that we are still in very difficult times. A lot of people have seen the stability in the foreign currency exchange rate vis-a-vis the Zimbabwean dollar, which has been there for the last 3 weeks or so. And people believe that that is the solution to all our problems. I think that is far from it. We still have a myriad of problems that we need to resolve. We still have this COVID-19 which is with us. We still need investment in this economy. We still need to look at some of our macroeconomic policies. We still need to look at issues to do with how do we attract foreign investors and so forth. So we still have the inflation problem, and whilst the inflation may be stable, but it is very high at this point in time. So we need to bring down inflation. We need our prices to be stable, and so we still have a lot of problems to resolve before we can say that the economy is on the right course. So we need our economy to be on the right course, on the right trajectory, before we can celebrate that we have achieved what we have been trying to achieve for all this time.
Well, viewers, our program has come to an end, and that was Dr. Israel Murefu, President of the Employers Confederation of Zimbabwe, who was unpacking the complexities around the US dollar salaries, post-COVID-19 recovery of companies, stimulus package, policy inconsistencies still bedeviling our economy. I was your host, Alois Swinga, and thank you for being with us. For these and more stories, please Do not hesitate to visit our website www.newzimbabwe.com